So thanks for attending. Believe it or not, last time this was a full house. This is Karen Collins. She's from New Hampshire Higher Education Assistance Foundation. She has an office in Concord, and they are an incredible resource for our families. We make referrals to them all the time. Are you guys both from New Hampshire?
Yeah.
All from New Hampshire?
Beverly, Mass.
Okay, perfect. So my example is, even though you're not a New Hampshire resident, because your child goes to school here, you can still take advantage of their services.
For sure.
Okay? So we'll have a nice small.
So this will be great. This is nice because we can really ask questions and get your information across to you. We'll follow the PowerPoint, but again, please just ask me any questions. I'm Karen. I'm one of the college counselors for the Center for College Planning. As Ellen said, we are located in Concord, New Hampshire. We meet with families through this whole college process, so really anything from figuring out which colleges make sense for the student to how do we pay for this education, and then we file the FAFSA forms in our office when the time comes. So right now, today, the rest of my staff is in our office filing FAFSAs with the folks who made appointments from around the state. So everything that we do is free, so we definitely want you to take advantage of that. Not a lot in this college process is free, so when that comes around, definitely take advantage. So this information, as well as all of our other nights that we do college nights, we do financial aid nights, we do college athlete nights, they're all available online. So you can go onto our website and take a peek at those. We also have a YouTube channel, so you can go on and listen to one of our presenters actually present those particular programs. So it's all up there. Students can sign up for our varsity letter. It's just a newsletter that they get. It's an electronic newsletter that they get once a month, and it has, usually we have about 5 or 6 points a month that we talk about with them. So for seniors right now, we might be talking about the college application process. We might actually probably be talking a lot about the financial aid process right now with them. For our juniors, we might be talking about visiting colleges, starting to make a plan of which schools are going to go on their list, those types of things. So it's a free monthly newsletter that they can sign up for. So financial aid, let's talk a little bit about that. The first thing that's pretty important to understand is the philosophy of financial aid. Where is that coming from? So financial aid is there really to make college more affordable for our students, but the primary responsibility for paying for an education lies with the family. So that's where the college admission offices are coming from, that's where the college financial aid offices are coming from. And in English, that means that we're going to probably pay something for our students' education, and what are we going to pay and how are we going to pay is why we go through this process. So there are 3 potential forms that a family is going to see. The first form up there is the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid. So all of us are going to file that form when our students go off to college, because 2-year schools, 4-year schools, public schools, private schools all use the FAFSA form to gather financial information. So that's the federal form. In addition, some of our families are also going to have to file the CSS profile form. That form is for specific private colleges, and typically what we're seeing is these are some more competitive private colleges that are requiring CSS profile and FAFSA. So it's always FAFSA, sometimes profile. So for many of our students that are attending Tilton School, we're seeing that they're also needing to file CSS profile. Institutional forms, there are not a lot of them out there. Some of the colleges, instead of using the CSS profile form, which is about 300 questions, they're saying, well, wait, we don't need quite that much information. Maybe we just need a little bit of information, or maybe we just want our own form that we're going to use. They have their own institutional form. Usually we'll find that at the college website, or it might be a supplement to the common application. We don't see many of those. I think in the last year or 2, the only one that I've really seen is Princeton was using one, and I don't know that they're using that this year. I haven't checked yet to be sure, but just be aware. So there are different types of financial aid out there. So when your students are receiving award letters from the different colleges, they're going to see different types of aid. The first type is gift aid. That's the good stuff. That's free money. So it's money that our students don't have to pay back, and it's money that we don't have to pay back when they graduate from college. You're going to see 2 types. There's going to be grants, and there's going to be scholarships. So anytime we see grant or scholarship, we know that that's gift aid. It's free money. Usually grants are need-based. So based on filing that FAFSA form and or filing that CSS profile form, we may be deemed eligible for need-based aid. That will come either through the federal government or through the individual institutions, and depending on your state that you're from, so from Massachusetts, you might see some grant from Massachusetts as well. New Hampshire doesn't have that state grant program. Merit-based aid is usually based on something that our student has done well, typically grades and/or test scores, maybe an athlete. So if we have students that are athletes here who are being recruited by some of the colleges, they may receive some athletic money. They may also receive money based on performing arts. So if they're a drama student, or if they're a dancer, or they play the tuba or something like that, and they go for an audition, they may receive money based on that. We're also seeing leadership awards from some of these colleges and community service awards. So colleges are very big on that community service piece that students are doing as well. So merit and gift aid, our need-based aid, do not have to be paid back when the student graduates. So we like to see as much of that as humanly possible. One of the things that I always tell families to keep in mind as your students are putting together their list of colleges is that not every school has both of these to offer to students. So we want to make sure that if we know we fall into one of those categories more heavily than the other, that we find colleges that have that. So in other words, if your student is a really good student and we're hoping that we're going to get money based on that student's grades, then we want to make sure that the college offers merit-based aid. If they're looking at particular types of schools that don't offer merit-based aid, they can be the valedictorian here, and they're not going to get merit-based aid. So if we know that that's what we're looking for, then when we're putting together a list of colleges, we want to pay attention to that. And where we're going to get the most merit-based aid is, for grades, is at schools where our student is a big fish in that pond. So if they just squeak into that admission class, they're not going to get a big scholarship. They might get something, but they're not going to get a big scholarship. But if they were at the top of that class being admitted, they're likely to get that bigger scholarship. So if that's something that is a consideration, then making sure that that list of schools that the student's applying to includes some of those schools where they are that big fish that offer merit-based aid is going to be a good idea. So a little bit of strategy as we put together our list of colleges. But again, I think the school counseling office is really helping the students to put that list together and make sure that those elements are there for them. They know where these students are getting in. They know where these students are getting awards. So they're really helping your students to put that into place. So you're at a big advantage there, which is great. Our students are also receiving self-help as part of their awards. Self-help comes in the form of student loans. So our students are all going to be offered a student loan if we file a FAFSA form. They're going to get $5,500 when they're freshmen. They're going to get $6,500 when they're sophomores, $7,500 when they're juniors and seniors, and any other additional undergraduate years. So if they borrow to the full extent of that loan, it's usually called a direct or Stafford loan. If they borrow to the full extent of that loan, they'll borrow $27,000 when they graduate, and their payments are going to be, at today's rate, probably somewhere in the $270 to $280 a month range when they come out of school. So everybody gets that. It's not based on our income. It's not based on our.
And it's a low interest loan?
It is. It's 3.7 right now for the students. It adjusts every July 1, but it's been in that general vicinity for a bunch of years now. And it's something that all of our students are eligible for. So if there's a place that they're going to borrow, this would be the place to start. It's a pretty simple loan. They automatically receive that loan. They go through entrance counseling. Once they select their college, the school will say, hey, you've got to do this entrance counseling, it's online. They read a bunch of stuff. You're borrowing on a student loan, here's what that means, you're going to have to pay it back, here's what the terms are. And then they have to answer questions as they go along. The answers are right on the same screen. So they do very well with these questions, but so they know that what they're doing and what they're borrowing. And then they sign a promissory note.
What's the length of the loan?
It's a 10-year repayment, it's standard 10-year repayment, but they can bump it out to 20 or 30 if they choose to. The typical repayment is just, break it down for those 10 years and it will be about $270. But they can do it income-based as well. So
$270 a month?
$270 a month when they come out. They can do it income-based as well, so usually it starts a little bit smaller and gets a little bit larger as they go along. Students who are teachers or in public service will do it income-based because they can get some loan forgiveness. So teachers have a particular loan forgiveness program, public service jobs have a particular loan forgiveness program. If they make payments for a certain number of years, then the rest gets forgiven. So they want to make the smallest payments possible for as long as possible so they have something left after that time to be forgiven. But they can also do it graduated payments so that they start intentionally little and can get bigger bigger as they go. So there's a bunch of different ways they can pay it back. They can consolidate, get a better rate. So there's a bunch of different ways that they can do it, but it is in their name. We don't show up on that particular loan, it's just in their name. So when the payments come due, it comes to them, not to us. So it's one way that they can help pay for their education. They don't have to take it if they don't want to. So some families say, we're okay, or we don't need to be saved, and you don't have to. But it's there. It will come as part of the award for all the colleges that your students receive.
So even if you've saved, you can make them pay more.
You can. Yep.
A little bit.
Yep, a lot of families do, just because it's their buy-in, they know.
That's exactly right.
They know that they're paying for some of that education, so they're buy-in, so we do that. We do that with our daughter as well. So then the colleges say, okay, so you filed your FAFSA form, you filed your CSS profile form, so now we need to put together an award for your family. How are we gonna do that? We're gonna take our cost of attendance. So when you are looking online right now and looking at colleges, and your student says, I love this school, and you look online and you see that the tuition payments are gonna, tuition is $69,000 or something like that a year. That's tuition, room, and board. When you get your financial aid award, it's gonna look like they bumped it up a little bit, like $3,000 to $5,000. It didn't go up. They're just using cost of attendance instead of just tuition, room, and board. They include things like books, things like supplies depending on their major, transportation, they'll include the loan fees, they'll include pizza on Friday night with their buddies doing their laundry. And they're trying to help us with the non-billable fees as well as the billable fees. So it's scary when you see those numbers and you're like, oh my gosh, it already went up this much? It didn't. They're just trying to help us with the additional money as well. So they'll use their cost of attendance, and from that, they're going to subtract what's called the expected family contribution. So when we file the FAFSA form and we press submit, we're going to get a confirmation page. Right in the middle of the confirmation page looks like a bunch of code, a lot of numbers, and it says little tiny EFC. That EFC is how much money the federal government has determined, based on our numbers, that we can afford to pay for 1 year of our students' education. And we'll look at those numbers and say, huh, really? Do you think so? It's higher than what we expect it might be, and it's higher than what we think we might write a check for to that individual college. And it is because it's a family contribution. So they're assuming that parents and students are going to contribute, that we're going to take some out of our savings, that we're going to take some out of our current income, and that we're going to borrow to some extent to get our students to college. So that number is going to be a little higher than what we thought it might be. But they subtract that right off the top, the cost of attendance, because they say, well, you can afford that, so we're going to let you pay it. Very nice of them. And then they say, whatever's left is what we're going to try to come up with. That's the student's eligibility for aid. So at a small private college, $42,000, family's expected contribution was $12,000. Student was eligible for $30,000. So how much of that $30,000 are they going to come up with? It's really going to depend on the school. It's going to depend on where that student falls in that academic pool. If they're offering merit-based scholarship, it's going to depend on where we fall in that need-based pool. And it's going to depend again on how much money that college has to offer to students. So some colleges are going to have more money to be able to offer to students than others. And public versus private is going to play a role as well. So the public institutions, especially in New Hampshire, don't have that funding behind them to be able to offer these huge merit awards or huge grants. It's just not the way that they're funded. But their price is really much lower. So they start at a point where we can wrap our heads around, which is great. So those private colleges, some of them, have great big amounts of money to be able to offer to our students. So they're able to offer big awards to our kids, and they come closer to the price of those public institutions. So we always say, apply to different, have a public, have a private, have, different types of schools on that list so we can see how financial aid plays out at those different schools. So let's look at what a financial aid award might look like. Again, at the top, they might tell us our cost of attendance. They might tell us then the expected family contribution and what our eligibility for aid is. Some don't even give us that information, some do. This student was a good student, so they received the presidential scholarship at that particular institution, and they received $9,000. They also received a university grant based on need. So they got a $7,500 grant. You can see the Stafford loan in there. It's broken into two pieces. You see subsidized, and you see unsubsidized. Subsidized means that while our students in college, there is no interest accruing on that loan. So the federal government is taking care of that. Unsubsidized means that there is interest accruing. And that this is the breakdown, this is the most subsidized loan that a student can get in the freshman year. So this student qualified for that because they had need, so that is based on need. You might see different breakdowns at different colleges because the cost of attendance is higher at some schools and lower at other schools. You might fall in a different place in their need base. But a lot of times we're going to see some subsidized, some unsubsidized student loan. Also receive work study. So although the student was eligible for $30,000, this college was able to come up with $24,500, left the family with a gap of $5,500. So we're going to pay that $5,500. We're also going to pay the $12,000 because that's our expected family contribution. And we're going to pay the work study because when they get work study, it doesn't come off the bill. They actually have to get to campus, find a job, and work those hours before they can maybe.
Oh, and then it comes off the bill as they work?
Not usually.
They get
Usually
paid.
they pay the kids.
Yes, they pay.
Yeah, they usually pay the kids, although sometimes you can make those arrangements with the institution that, you do this. What we say a lot of times is that families use it as the, hey mom, you want to transfer some money into my account? And you say, hey kiddo, you have a job. A lot of families will use it as that kind of money on campus. So it's spending money, it's to go, out to eat with their buddies and to a concert and that kind of stuff. They typically will use it for that. Books maybe, some of them will use it for books on campus as well. So $20,000 is going to be due to this particular institution, but in the end, when we pay overall, it's going to be $25,500. So there's a student loan involved as well. So this is pretty typical, but where we can see a difference is here. So this college's top dollar residential scholarship was $9,000. Other colleges, you're going to see $32,000 as their top dollar. Some are 15, some are 20. So depending on the schools they're applying to and where they fall in that pool, that's the number that can change the most.
That's
We're going to be the same
That's
family.
based on what you fill out for your potential.
Well, this number is going to be based on that. So this one's grant. But this one was based on our students' grades.
Great.
So, yeah, so that's where they can affect that the most. So depending on the types of schools they're applying to. So if they're applying to, a school that's a reach school for them, that they might get into or they might not. If they get in, they're probably not at the top of the applicant pool at that particular school if it was a reach for them, because it wasn't a reach for other students. So those students are getting the bigger money, and our students might not be getting as big money at that school. But there are schools that were target schools, right, where they fit that category, or the schools that were safer for them, are where they're going to see a bigger reward. So that can be affected by where the student falls in that applicant pool, and what the school has to offer. Your student might have been a top student and they only offered $9,000. But they might be a top student in another school and they got $30,000. So it just depends on what that school has to offer. So that's the place where it can be adjusted the most, because we're going to be the same, we're going to demonstrate the same need and all of those types of things. But that's where our students can do a good job, get good grades, get good test scores, be a great athlete if that's what they are. That's where they can affect that the most. So, and again, that's where our counseling office comes in next too, for sure. So this is a pretty typical award, but like I said, that presidential scholarship is where we see the biggest fluctuation between students in our office. So how do we know what our expected family contribution is if you want a really fun weekend? You can go to one of these websites and you can calculate your family's EFC. I like this one best, or it's pretty much the same one that's on our website as well, because you can play with the numbers a little bit more. This one is kind of, it locks you in a little bit more and it makes you put more information in. They're all accurate, but this one just requires a lot more input. Like they want more data from us. They want more like name and social security, they want that. These don't require any of that. But it's a good idea to know this number just to know where you're starting. Where are we starting from? What do these colleges think we can, they're going to see this number. They're not going to give us this money. So where are we starting? We know we're going to pay at least that expected family contribution. So what is that expected family contribution?
Does it change on a college basis or just?
This one is federal. So this is a federal methodology. Where it does change on a college basis is if they have the CSS profile in addition, because then they're using the institutional methodology, so they're combining the two.
So we're gonna have to do both.
For most of us, we might have to do both, depending on which colleges our student is applying to. So the CSS profile is a college board product. So the folks that do the SATs, but also the folks that have the CSS profile. So if you go onto their website, they have a listing of all the profile schools. So you'll see in New Hampshire, the only two schools are Dartmouth and St. Anselm College, but as we go south, across that border into Massachusetts, there's a lot more. that are going to require that CSS profile form. So it's typically the more competitive private colleges that you're seeing. BC is going to use CSS profile. That's the one that we see a lot of the students applying to. BU probably uses profile. Northeastern uses profile. So you're going to see some schools like that are going to be using that profile form. And I was telling Ellen earlier too that I thought, my daughter's a sophomore in college, and I figured the profile would hurt us, filing that profile, because you filing the FAFSA, we didn't qualify for anything. So I figured, well, now they're going to get more information from the profile, because the FAFSA is very income driven. It's really based on our income. It doesn't ask about our home. It doesn't ask about our retirement funds. It's really very income driven. CSS profile asks about all of those things and more stuff too that we have. So I thought, well, great, now they're going to hear about our home and our retirement, and so we're definitely going to get no money. Can we get negative money? I don't know, because that's what we're going to get from the school. In the end, because that school really didn't offer merit-based financial aid, this is how they were offering their aid. So our daughter was actually offered $25,000 of need-based aid from that particular institution, where we got $0 in need-based aid at any other institution. So they're going to do one or the other, the colleges, whether they give it need-based or whether they give it merit-based. So those schools with the CSS profile, which I thought would hurt families more, might not in the end hurt our families more. They're going deeper into that need pool because they're going to discount it some way. And if that's the way they're doing it, they're looking deeper into that pool. If she didn't get that money, she couldn't go.
So when you say they, factor in income,
They do.
529 plans
Yep.
in their name and that kind of stuff, all
They do.
factor into that?
Yeah, on both forms, yeah. So on the FAFSA form, there are only 3 asset questions, actually, and some families don't even answer them. So they ask you, there's what's called asset protection allowance built into the FAFSA form. It's based on our age. So whatever our age is, the closer we are to retirement, the more our assets are protected on that form. So our assets are protected up until that amount. After that amount, anything above that amount, 5.64% at the top level is considered for our assets. They ask us for how much is, as of today, when you're filing, is what's in your bank accounts. They ask that. Second question is, what are your investments? And they want to know things like stocks and bonds, mutual funds, 529s, Coverdell's, if you have those for your children.
Do they
But
have
not-
access, do they have access to all that information? Why do they ask?
They can ask you for that information. They don't have access. We don't have to provide any documentation, but they can. Things like if you had a second home, that would be considered an asset, but not our house, not our primary residence. Not our retirement plans, no annuities, things like that are not going on the FAFSA form. They will on the CSS, but they don't on FAFSA. And the third question they ask is if you have a business or a farm that you operate, but you only put business assets in if you have more than 100 employees. So that switched about 5 years ago. So those are the questions. Those are the 3 questions on FAFSA. CSS profile, so many more. There's like 300 questions. They want to know, what did you have out-of-pocket expenses for medical, for the year. They want to know, your home, when did you buy it, how much is it worth today, how much did you pay then. They ask about different accounts that you might have. They might ask about a siblings account. So they ask a lot more things on the CSS than they do on the FAFSA form. But everybody's being asked all those same questions. So they're asking all those questions and it comes through. One of the myths that we see, a lot of families say, I'm not going to save for college because they're just going to count it against me in the formula. So I use this with my brother all the time. He kept saying, I'm not saving, so we'll be in trouble. 2 families, pretty similar. The only difference is this family saved $55,000 for college and this family saved $1,000 for college. So this is what their EFCs look like in the end. And remember, that's how much money, sorry, that's okay, that was the other one, sorry. This is how much money the colleges see, and they start from, they say, okay, you can afford this, you can afford that. And truthfully, these are so close together that these families are going to really receive the same type of package from a college. It's not dollar for dollar on a college campus. These are really in the same bracket. So this student and this student are receiving pretty similar awards on a campus. But this family has $55,000 to help pay, and this family has 1. So saving for college on the FAFSA form is not a bad thing. And really, again, the CSS form, although it seems to be harmful, isn't as harmful as what I, originally thought back in my earlier years of doing all this. So saving for college is a good thing if you've done that, so. And this is just another example. So, no, it's fine. So there's some of the things that are parent asset versus child asset. Anything in our child's name is much more available for that formula. They don't have asset protection because although they might think they are the heads of the household, they are not. So anything in their name, 20% available for that formula. Anything in ours, after asset protection allowance, top dollar is 5.4%. So kids, us. So any 529 plans that we have are our asset, even though they have the child as beneficiary. Yep, child will be the beneficiary, but we can change that. So we hold those funds, which is actually good on the FAFSA form, because it will be protected somewhat with us, whereas for them, it would be 20% available. So if your first child, you have 2 children, you have 2 529s, you have 3 children and 3 529s, if one of them says, I am joining the circus, I'm not going to college, you can say, fine, your 529 goes to your next sibling. So, yeah, so they count 529s as parent assets. Cardell, same kind of thing. Savings bonds, if we have those in our own name, they'll be ours. Students, when we set up, their baby accounts when they were little babies, we set up the admins, so we could deposit to their accounts. Those are actually going to be their accounts, even though our names are on them. Savings bonds in their name are going to be theirs as well. So you can get an idea of what asset protection allowance looks like. If the eldest parent is 60, about $25,000. Eldest parent is 45, about $17,000 of asset protection allowance. So that we could have saved and it doesn't affect us. Above that, again, it's considered for the formula. So assets, not as big a deal on the FAFSA form. And one of the things too is like a lot of people get nervous about those assets if they have bigger assets. But typically if they have bigger assets, they probably have a bigger income too, which is going to affect you more on the FAFSA form and make you more eligible right away than the assets are. So one of the things that we can do is look at net price calculators on each financial aid page or admission page at the college's website. You can find these net price calculators. Excuse me. They're kind of fun to play with. They give us an idea of what that college might award to our student if they were to apply there. So we put in the same kinds of information we put into the FAFSA form, our adjusted gross income, the number of children we have, the number of children who will be in college at the same time, taxes we paid, those types of things are going to go on to that form, and they're going to give us an idea of what they might be able to offer to our student. Those are great. I played with them a lot, definitely, and some of them are super accurate, to be honest with you, when we received the results from our daughter. The ones that I felt were most helpful were the ones that also included academic information, because for some of us, they might not get as much need-based aid, but they might be getting a huge merit award, and that's what you might want to know about. If they don't ask about it, they're not calculating that. But some of them will ask, how many honors classes does your student have? How many APs classes does your student have? How many blah, blah, and this and that and the other thing, and they can calculate what type of an award they would also give them for merit. So they're good. They're only as good as what the college is using in terms of their particular tool, but it's a good way to get somebody who's,
So, you mentioned that the more you make, the less popular
Yeah.
is there
Cut off.
cut off?
Yeah, I get asked that every time. There's really not a cutoff because it depends on our age too. It depends on the size of our family. It depends upon do we contribute to retirement funds?
Does it depend on what college, some colleges are 65,000,
Yeah.
20,000.
And so we'll demonstrate more need at some schools than the other. Our EFC will stay the same, but we'll demonstrate more need at some campuses than others. So those higher priced campuses, we're likely to get more money. We're likely to look needier on their campuses than we would at the University of New Hampshire or Plymouth. But typically, a dual income family is probably not going to qualify for a Pell Grant. There's a federal Pell Grant that is offered to some families or to some students. Top dollar is $5,900 for students to help them to go to college. The income levels are probably going to be more in the $30,000 to $40,000 a year range for a student.
You have to apply for Pell's Net still?
No, you just get them through the federal process. So if a student's eligible, you'll know that. Once you file the FAFSA form, it'll say right on it. Pell Grant, however much,
There are some grants that they can,
There are some that they
Right?
can. Yep, there are some that they can. So some schools participate in a teach grant, for instance, and, you know, you might get that information through the admission process and you might not. So you might have to contact that school. I know my daughter's a special ed major, and some of the schools put it on her award and others did not. So there are certain things that you might have to ask about, you know, as you go through the process. And individual colleges is probably where most of our students are going to see the most money, not necessarily through the federal government, because there's not as much for students to have, but that's where you can, you know, work with those individual colleges too. The forms are limited, you know, there's only so much information you can put on those forms. So if there are things in our family that aren't being addressed in those particular questions that are being asked on that FAFSA form, we need to contact financial aid and let them know. You know, I've had families where, I had one family one year, when I was a school counselor, their house had broken down, and they had an insurance settlement that was sitting in an account, so they had a substantial amount of money sitting in an account to rebuild their home, which they were in the process of doing, but there was a substantial amount sitting there, and that family normally would not have that. It was skewing the numbers on their forms, but we had to include it. It's a federal form, we can include everything that's there. But they were able to contact the schools, show the documentation, and then they were able to, on their end, adjust those awards. I've also had families that, you know, during the process, parents got separated. So you needed to adjust those numbers. Or any number of things. We lose a job, we get a job, we are not earning as much as we were. You know, we're using, for this year, seniors, we're using 2015 tax information. So for you guys, we're using 2016 tax information, which may or may not be reflective of what's happening for you guys at that point in time when your students are heading off to college. We have to use it. That's what we have to do. But then we tell the colleges, okay, 2016 was one thing, but now here's what we're doing. You know, this is another thing. I see a lot of families whose parents are close to retirement age, and so, you know, maybe dad is retiring after 2015. That's not being reflected. So we have to adjust with the colleges and let them know that information.
When did the timeline, what's the FAFSA again?
So for you guys who are parents of juniors, right?
Yes.
So you guys will be using 2016 tax information when you file, and you'll start filing in October. You can start filing in October of your student senior year, all the way through probably March for some of the schools.
Okay.
Yeah, depending, but likely you guys are gonna do it in October, just because you have students who are gonna be.
We'll be pestering you too.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Well,
I mean, does it?
The reason I asked is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, sorry.
you know what, this year there was a lot of pressure. This was the first year that they opened it in October.
Yeah.
Usually it's January. There was a lot of pressure coming from the schools, and I saw it all over Facebook that you have to do it earlier, you're not gonna get money. Federal money is federal money. If you're applying in July and going to school in August, you're gonna get the federal money you're entitled to. It's just the way it works. Individual institutions, though, could have particular deadlines for scholarships and could have particular deadlines. Are they in October? No. You know, no. Do we want you to file then? Because you guys are likely to be applying to some competitive schools? Yeah, I kind of do want you to be thinking about October. Do you have to do it October 1? You know, don't get nervous. We file these in our office. So right now, actually as we speak, my colleagues are in the office and they're filing FAFSAs all day long for families. So we do Monday through Friday, and we do certain Saturdays for families to come in and file. It's free, so you know, we definitely encourage you to come on in and see us. We tell you what to bring. We tell you what you need. It takes less than an hour, and we send it off to all students' colleges. We do thousands of these every single year. They're not bad. This year they're much easier because we're using prior year tax information. You've already filed it. So all we need to do is go in and retrieve that from the IRS. There's a tool that we use right in the FAFSA form. It connects to the IRS. It's so cool. Connects you right out to the IRS. You see your tax
So when
information
did
there.
that must be new.
It's fairly new. They started doing it a couple of years ago, but not always, because families were filing in January using that year's tax information. So we didn't have it. We hadn't filed. Maybe later when they were adjusting, they could use the tool, but not
And
always.
we file an extension every year.
Right, so then you weren't able to use that tool
My
ever.
wife does taxes, and
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say we do an extension
Yeah.
every year.
Because she's filing everybody else's.
Exactly.
So she doesn't have time to do yours. That's
Exactly.
how it is. It's like, it's always the doctor's kids that go in last, you know, it's how it is.
Yep.
My kids have their education stuff last, you know, it's the way it works. Which is fine. But this year, now you're gonna be using prior tax year information, so you guys will be probably fine. You know, you'll have that by October probably of that year.
Yeah.
So you'll be fine. Yeah, so you'll be fine, so you'll be able to use it. So it's so much easier now than it was in the past. And I like it too for you guys because you're gonna get information earlier in the process, so you know what that expected family contribution is, you know what you might be able to expect from some of these schools. So if you have to adjust, add a school, subtract a school, you can do it.
So I have a question about prior year.
Yeah.
So you're keying in, it pulls your tax information
It
and
does.
income, but somewhere else, I'm sure like we have our oldest graduates in May. And if we did prior year, we'd have to declare that he's graduating, right, at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah, so, yeah.
It's not trying to game the system, but I'm
No,
just-
no, I know what you're saying. So you,
Well, yeah,
it will
if that was-
yeah, yeah, it will pull those tax information in, but there's certain questions that you still have to keep
That are up
answering
to
each
date.
year. Yeah, so each year, like this year, we had to refile for my daughter, who's her second year in college, and we still had to answer how many students are in college, how many in your household, so those questions you re-answer each year.
So it's a mix of current
It is.
information and
Yeah,
old
it
information.
is. Yeah, so really the tax information is the old information, it's like the adjusted gross, the taxes we paid, those little places are in, but we update each year, so they ask you email address. I mean, it's all in there, but it's for you to change each year.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a great question, actually. I never
Because I
thought
know,
about
we
that.
haven't had to do, we did this the first, my oldest is graduating in
Oh, yeah.
May. We did it the first year, we have not done it since.
You haven't had to do it since.
No,
Some schools you redo, and other schools, like, we didn't qualify for anything, so really it's not that pressing that we do. I mean, I want her to get the student loans, I want her to have the responsibility, so we do it every year for her. But is it pressing that we do it? Yeah, makes
Karen, you
sense.
have about 5.
5, okay, perfect, let's keep you going. So funding this education, how do we do it? Families do it a number of ways. They do kind of a little bit of everything we're seeing in our office, and we sit down with families and go through all of this once awards come out. We can talk about, this college looks like the bottom line is pretty good, and this college looks a little higher, but really, if you notice on this college, they've awarded you more loan money, and this college is awarded more merit money, so in the end, this one's kind of a better deal. So we kind of go through that with families, and then talk about what are we gonna do about that. Savings, current income, obviously, is a way that we can not finance that education. Tuition payment plans are a great way to help pay for an education. Instead of paying in July for the first semester and December for the second semester, usually December 22nd. For the second semester, you can pay over the course of 8 or 10 months, which is kind of nice. You don't necessarily have to pay the full amount you owe, but you can say, we want to pay $2,000 this year in a tuition payment plan, so we're not financing, we'll pay $200 a month. So you can set it up that way with the schools, it's pretty nice. Parents can also borrow on a loan, similar to our students getting a federal loan, we can get a federal loan. It's really a credit check, so one of the parents goes through a credit check and they say, great, you're all set, you can borrow on this loan. You'll notice the rate is not super low. See that there. So some families say, you know what, that's great and it's super easy, but we're gonna take a different route. We're gonna use home equity or line of credit, or we're gonna do something different, which is totally fine too. This is just easy for a lot of families. You don't have to go through as many hoops as getting that equity loan, but it's there. Private student loans, we can get additional loans in our student's name. We're gonna end up co-signing for them because they don't have credit. But there's tons out there. So you just have to be careful about what the rates are. Are they variable? Are they fixed? Do we ever get reduced?
You know how you hear in the news about all the kids that get these student loans and all of a sudden the interest balloons? Is that,
That could be
there's some
those.
sketchy ones out there.
Because they're variable rates. So if they're variable, they can change at any point in time. So a lot of times while they're in school, they're low, but then they graduate and they bump the rates up on the student, and
And they can bump them up even if the market.
depends on how they're set up.
Okay.
So you just have to be careful where you borrow, when you do those. And again, we're gonna end up being co-signers on those loans, so we want them to be careful where they're borrowing. Some kids are borrowing, an additional 40 grand a year in addition to their federal student loans, and then their payments are, $1,800 a month when they graduate, and they can't, but they're gonna live in New York City and drive a BMW, and they're gonna have cable, and they're gonna have a phone, and that's what they say, because they're gonna make $1 million a month, So that'd be great, I hope they do, but a lot of times that means that they end up coming back and living with us because they can't quite afford that student loan. So we just have to be careful about what they're doing. Again, you have good counsel here. Private scholarships, we absolutely want our kids to be looking at this. There are national searches they can do, but we want them to pay more attention to local because more likely that they're get that money. Here's a place where they really want to spend some time. These come in, right, and they come in, the students, I mean, you said in the last session that they literally look at the criteria, look through the senior class and say, you qualify, here's your papers. I mean, that doesn't happen. I will
We
tell
don't
you
get
that.
a ton in our office, but students don't need to come in and look at anything because
Yes, awesome.
all the info we get on scholarships, we look through the criteria, we see who it matches in the senior class, we call that student in and hand it to them.
Which I'm telling you is crazy, that's awesome.
We had one really pleasant surprise here that I was just shocked with our older son. So on award night, I guess junior year, he got a book award, and we had never heard of such a thing.
Yep, awards are
And
good.
and he goes, oh, Dad, look, I got a book, great, you know, okay. So then he actually wound up going to the school that he got the book
That big
award
money
from.
then.
You know, it was a staggering amount
Yeah,
of money
it's
out of a book award.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just
And
like,
that's why those book awards, they spend a lot of time thinking about them, because they're going to give that to a student who might go to that college,
he
because
went
it
there
is
to play
that great.
baseball, and it was, but it was a merit-based thing, and
Yeah.
it was like, it made all the difference in the world. I mean,
Absolutely. So it makes a huge difference. I don't care if it's $1,000 or whatever they get, it's nice when they get those. So pay attention to that. New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, for any families that are in New Hampshire, they are great. They have about 150 different scholarships every single year. Student goes online after February 1 of the senior year. They apply online. It qualifies them for all of those scholarships there. They pick which ones they can, fit into. They don't have to do anything. And last year, I was just talking to Hillary from their office, and she said like 1 in 3 kids actually received an award, and the average award was like $4,200. So really worthwhile. It's worth going through that, right? I mean, I'd take that any day. So it's worth going through their process. They're really great and super easy. Our employers, their employers, they should be looking there as well. But this can make a big difference in their education, for sure. We don't go away. We work very closely with the counselors here. Anytime you have a question, if you want us to help you file that FAFSA form, you just give us a ring. Come on down and see us. We're available. Everything that we do is free. So, just like you get that here, we want to make sure that you get that extended service here. Any student going to school here, whether they're from Florida, from New Hampshire, can come on in and visit with us. And we can get those forms filed for them. But, we have tons on our website available. We actually just launched our brand new website last week, so it's pretty exciting that it's very well organized, you can find stuff, which is great. But we have a YouTube channel where you can listen to these presentations. We have, all of the presentations up online, tons of information, or you give us a call. We're on the phones all day, so thanks a ring. This process sounds daunting. It is. It's a lot of stuff, but our students do very well with that, and they have a lot of guidance here to help them to go through this process. Visit campuses. That's one of the things I would definitely recommend, is visit as many schools as you can, because they will get a really pretty quick sense of whether they like that or not. And you should visit again once they've been accepted, because it's interesting to see that they feel different about the schools once they've been admitted, because now they're making a choice rather than it's the college's choice. My daughter had a very different perspective. I don't know why, but on the schools, once she had been admitted, she's like, well, now I'm making the decision, so I'm looking at it differently than they can make a decision about me. So go visit again once they've been admitted and see what their sense is, and think hard about how far away from home and all of those things before you get there. Have fun with it. It's exciting. It goes fast, doesn't it?